The morning was ordinary. It started like any other. I was up before the sun, as always, preparing breakfast, making sure everything was ready for the day ahead. I glanced over at the small kitchen table, where Emma, our daughter, sat quietly eating her cereal. She was always so still in the mornings, like a little adult in a child's body, taking her time with everything. It was one of those moments I wish I had savored more. I never could have known it would be the last quiet breakfast we'd share for a very long time. John, my husband, had already left for work. Nothing unusual about it. He had a schedule, a routine. There was a comfort in the predictability of it all. He had his job, his meetings, his things to do. I was the one at home, managing the house, taking care of Emma. It had always been like that. Even after all these years, we had our roles, our places. I didn't think anything was off when he kissed me goodbye that morning, though now, looking back, I feel foolish for not sensing the emptiness behind his eyes. He was distant lately, but I attributed it to the stress of work, the pressures of providing for us. Maybe I should have paid more attention to the small things, the way he would stay late at the office or avoid eye contact during dinner. But then again, marriage was supposed to be about trust, wasn't it? We had always talked through everything before. Or so I thought. I spent the day as usual, picking up after Emma, making sure she finished her homework, planning dinner. There was nothing to suggest that anything was wrong. Until the phone call came. It was around 6 in the evening when I received the first call from him. I had just finished cooking dinner, and Emma was playing with her toys in the living room. John was supposed to be on his way home. I picked up the phone, expecting his usual, "I'll be home soon" call. But it wasn't him. The voice on the other end was strange, tense, urgent. A man I didn't recognize. I could barely catch my breath as he spoke. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his voice low. "This is Detective Harris. I'm afraid we've had an incident." I didn't understand at first. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the words struggling to make sense. I didn't ask for details then. I didn't want to. All I knew was that something had happened, something that involved John, and he wasn't home. The knot in my stomach grew tighter with each passing second. I remember saying I'd be right there, though I don't recall how I managed to get out of the house. All I remember is standing there, in my kitchen, numb and dazed, staring at the phone in my hand, unable to understand why my world felt like it was crumbling, even before I knew what had really happened. I don't remember driving. I don't remember how I found myself in that cold, sterile office, staring at a police officer who wouldn't meet my gaze. "Where is he? Where's John?" I asked, my voice breaking as I felt the cold sweat form on my palms. The officer's face was blank. "Ma'am, I'm afraid your husband isn't at the address you gave us. We've been trying to reach him, but... Where is my daughter?" I cut him off, suddenly aware of the terrible quiet, the nagging absence of Emma's voice. The officer paused, as if he didn't want to answer me. We have reason to believe that your husband may have left the country with her, ma'am. We're doing everything we can to track them down, but..." I couldn't breathe. The air seemed to leave the room, and my chest felt too small for my heart to keep beating. What did he mean, left the country? Where was Emma? Why? And why had he taken her? My mind reeled, images flashing like a storm, memories of 1,000 little moments, Emma's giggle, John's embrace, those now felt like a lifetime ago, distant, unreal. "He wouldn't do that," I whispered. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew. I knew, deep down, that he had. I was left alone in that sterile, quiet office, the world crashing down around me, with nothing but an empty space where my family had been. The world after that moment didn't feel like my own. The hours bled into one another, twisting into days. I remember sitting in the police station, waiting for any shred of information, anything to make sense of what had just happened. My mind was a blur. I couldn't process it. The officer's words replayed endlessly in my mind. Your husband may have left the country with her. I could still feel the numbness in my limbs, the way everything around me felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. The image of Emma's face, that sweet, innocent smile, flashed before me. How could John do this? How could he take her, and why? My thoughts circled endlessly, each question leading to another, each thought a step closer to an abyss I didn't want to face. When I finally made it home, the house felt empty, the silence louder than ever before. I stood in the doorway of the living room, staring at the scattered toys, the half-finished drawings on the table. Emma's little world, frozen in time, as though she had simply stepped out for a moment. But I knew, deep down, I wasn't going to see her again anytime soon. I sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. My body ached with exhaustion, but I couldn't sleep. Not now. Not while my daughter was gone. My mind raced, replaying every conversation I'd ever had with John, every argument, every quiet moment when I thought something was wrong but didn't have the words to address it. What had I missed? Had I been so caught up in the monotony of our lives that I hadn't seen the cracks growing beneath the surface? The first few days were the hardest. The phone calls, the unanswered questions, the endless stream of legal paperwork and officers telling me to be patient, that they were doing everything they could. But all I could think about was Emma. My daughter. What was she feeling? Was she scared? Did she even know why her father had taken her away from me? I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. Each passing hour stretched like a year. I tried calling John's phone over and over again, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried emailing him, sending messages I didn't even know how to word, desperate for some kind of contact, some kind of explanation. But nothing came. Not even a word. I couldn't understand it. He had always been distant, yes, but he'd never been cruel. At least, not to me. To Emma. To our little girl. I couldn't fathom it. The whole thing seemed like an impossible nightmare, and yet, it was my new reality. On the third night, I found myself standing in Emma's room. Her tiny bed sat in the corner, still made up, her favorite stuffed bunny perched at the head of the pillow as if waiting for her. I couldn't breathe. I felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. I ran my hand over the soft blanket, the delicate fabric, and for a moment, I could almost pretend it was all normal, that Emma was simply sleeping, that everything would be okay when she woke up. But it wasn't. I had no answers. No closure. And worst of all, no way to reach her. Days turned into weeks, and the empty spaces in my life seemed to grow. The quiet was unbearable. I had to keep going, had to keep searching, had to find a way to bring Emma home. But I was alone, utterly alone, with only the haunting silence of the house and the growing uncertainty inside me. Where was she? Was she safe? Was she asking for me? My heart ached with a pain so raw I wasn't sure how much longer I could stand it. I thought about John. I thought about all the promises we had made to each other when we first met, the vows we had taken, the life we had built together. And now, it felt like it had all been a lie. He had taken my child. He had taken my life. What had driven him to this? What had changed him? The questions gnawed at me, but the answers were as elusive as the air in the room. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't. The thought of Emma, somewhere far away, without me, it consumed me, gnawed at my every waking moment. I had to find her. I had to. And that drive, that fierce, all-consuming need to get her back, kept me moving, kept me from falling into the pit of despair. But the truth was, each day that passed, each moment that I couldn't reach her, felt like a piece of myself was breaking away. I was shattering, little by little, and no one in the world could understand it. I had to keep searching. I had to find her. The days began to blur into one long stretch of hollow attempts. I spent hours combing through every bit of information I could find about international custody battles. I called lawyers, filled out forms, made endless inquiries to every government agency that might have some trace of where John could have gone, but it was as if he had vanished into thin air. There were no leads, no clear path to follow, just a trail of empty promises and dead ends. It was all I could do to keep going. Every morning I woke up with the weight of another day ahead of me, another day without Emma, another day of wondering if I would ever see her again. I could barely remember what it was like to smile. I could barely remember what it was like to breathe without the constant ache in my chest. John had disappeared without a word. I kept asking myself, why? Why would he do this? What could possibly be so important that he would take her from me? The police couldn't do much. They had to go through the proper channels, work with international authorities, but it was all so slow. There were days when I felt like I was suffocating in the waiting. Time was moving, and my daughter was out there somewhere. Alone. I visited Emma's school a few times, hoping to talk to her teachers, hoping someone might have seen something or heard something that would give me a hint. But they hadn't. Nothing. No one could offer anything useful. It was like a cruel game, everything felt like a lie, as if the world was pretending I wasn't missing the most important thing in it. But in the quiet of my home, in the lonely silence of rooms once filled with laughter, I found myself grasping at any thread of hope that might lead me to Emma. I didn't want to face the truth. I didn't want to accept that John had taken her away, that my life was now shattered beyond recognition. I couldn't stop thinking about the last moments we had shared. The quiet mornings, the little exchanges. There was no argument, no fight. It was just ordinary. And then, suddenly, he was gone. Emma was gone. And I was left alone in the space we had once shared, wondering where it had all gone wrong. What had I missed? What had John hidden from me all this time? The phone calls from the police became fewer. Each time they called, I braced myself for more bad news, but each time, it was the same: we're still searching. We don't have any new leads. Please be patient. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to ask them how they could ask me to be patient when my entire world was falling apart. When my daughter was out there, somewhere. Alone. Scared. I threw myself into the legal process, trying to push forward, trying to stay one step ahead of the despair that threatened to swallow me whole. But the paperwork, the bureaucracy, it was a labyrinth I could barely navigate. Each form felt like another layer of distance between me and Emma. And then there were the quiet nights. Nights where I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for sleep to come. But sleep didn't bring peace. It brought dreams, dreams of Emma, dreams of John, twisted and fragmented. Sometimes I'd wake up, drenched in sweat, clutching the sheets as if I could reach out and touch her again. But every time, I woke up to an empty bed. In the days that followed, I started to make plans. I had to. I couldn't wait forever, couldn't let my life be held hostage by uncertainty. I began looking into flights, into how to track down John across borders. The thought of confronting him, of finding him and demanding answers, filled me with both dread and determination. But what if I never found her? What if she was lost to me forever? The fear gnawed at me, making it hard to breathe, to function, to see past the endless black hole that had consumed my life. Yet, even in the darkest moments, something deep inside me refused to let go. There was still a spark of hope, flickering in the distance, too fragile to extinguish. I refused to give up. I would find Emma. Somehow, I would find her. But every step forward was painful. Every lead was a dead end. And each day that passed without news was another day I felt myself slipping further away from the life I had known. I had become a shadow of the woman I used to be, a mother without a child, a wife without a husband. And yet, despite the aching emptiness, I couldn't let go of the one thing that had kept me going, the hope that one day, I would hold my daughter in my arms again. It had to happen. It just had to. Days turned into weeks, then into months. Time moved with the heaviness of a clock that ticked too slowly, each second dragging me further from the life I had known. But there were still moments, quiet moments, when I could almost hear Emma's laughter echoing in the corners of the house. A memory, like a fleeting shadow, would slip past me, and for just a second, I could almost imagine that everything was normal again. But it was never real. The police, though they had made some progress, still hadn't found anything concrete. They would check in from time to time, offering a few words of encouragement, but the weight of their silence was louder than any assurance. Their efforts were there, but I could feel the growing frustration behind their words, an acknowledgement that the case was slipping from their hands, like sand through an hourglass. I spent hours each day on the internet, researching, sending out messages, contacting private investigators, trying to piece together a map of where John might have gone. I contacted embassies, immigration authorities, and even tried to reach out to journalists, hoping for a breakthrough. But each call, each email, felt like a step further into an abyss, with no light at the end of it. Some days, I could hardly look at myself in the mirror. I had lost something in myself during those long months, something vital, something that made me feel whole. I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed or felt even the smallest shred of joy. The only feeling that remained was the constant ache, that gaping hole in my chest where my daughter's presence had once been. One evening, as I sat on the edge of Emma's bed, holding her favorite stuffed animal, my phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number, a string of digits from overseas. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. Could it be? I hesitated for a moment, my fingers trembling as I answered. Hello? My voice came out small, uncertain. The voice on the other end was low, calm, but there was something in it that sent a shiver down my spine. It was a man's voice, and though I didn't recognize it at first, something about it made my blood run cold. Mrs. Turner, the voice began, pausing as if gauging my reaction. We've been following your case, and I believe we may have some information that could help. I leaned forward, my heart hammering in my chest. I barely managed to keep my voice steady. Who is this? What do you know? I'm sorry for the cryptic nature of this call, the man continued. But I think I may know where your daughter is. Or at least, where she's been taken. My mind went blank, my thoughts crashing together in a chaotic wave. For a moment, I was suspended in time, unable to comprehend the words. What do you mean? Where is she? Where is my daughter? The man didn't respond immediately. There was a long pause, and then, in a low whisper, he said, She's not far. But your husband, he's been very careful. Too careful. We're trying to piece together his movements, but he's evading us. If you want to see her again, you'll need to act quickly. A knot twisted in my stomach. It felt too surreal, too sudden, to be real. My mind raced. Where? What did he mean? Who was this man, and why was he calling me now? I had so many questions, so many doubts. But I couldn't stop myself from speaking. What do you need from me? What can I do? There was a brief silence before the man spoke again. You'll need to trust me. But right now, all I can say is that you need to prepare yourself. You're not just fighting to bring your daughter home anymore. There are things your husband is involved in that you don't know about. Things that could complicate everything. Be careful. The line went dead. I sat there in stunned silence, my fingers still gripping the phone. The words echoed in my mind. Things your husband is involved in. What did that mean? What had John gotten himself into? And why hadn't I seen it? I didn't know who to trust anymore. The feeling of betrayal, of being left in the dark, gnawed at me with each passing minute. Had John been hiding something from me all this time? What was he running from? What was I about to uncover? The uncertainty swirled around me like a storm, and in that moment, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit before. I wasn't just searching for Emma anymore. I was unraveling something much darker, something much more dangerous than I had ever imagined. I had no choice but to continue, though. I couldn't stop now. For Emma, for the truth, I had to keep going, no matter what lay ahead. But as I hung up the phone and the silence of the house crept back in, I felt the weight of what was coming. The pieces of this puzzle were scattered, and they were more dangerous than I ever expected. The search for Emma was no longer just about finding her, it was about surviving whatever John had set into motion. The days that followed that call were a blur of tension, unease, and decisions that weighed too heavily for any human being to bear. The mysterious man who had contacted me refused to offer more details. He remained distant, cryptic, urging me to act quickly while withholding essential information, each conversation leaving me more tangled in the web of my own questions. But in that time, a new resolve began to form within me, one born from the need to protect Emma, to end the silence that had consumed my life. I had to find her. I had to confront John. Every waking moment became a battle against my own fears. I prepared myself for the unknown, for the dangerous road ahead. I had no choice now. The phone call had set everything into motion. Whatever had been hidden in the shadows was about to be revealed, and there was no going back. The man finally contacted me again, his voice low, his tone more urgent this time. "You've been looking for your daughter, Mrs. Turner. But you need to know this, your husband's disappearance wasn't just a random act. There's more to this than you think. More than you've seen." I tried to stay calm, but my breath hitched. "What are you saying? What's he involved in? Where is she?" He hesitated, as though weighing the decision to tell me. "I can't explain everything now, but I can help. You need to be prepared for what you'll find. John's gone off the grid for a reason. You're not just looking for Emma anymore, you're looking for answers. But those answers will come with consequences." His words hung heavy in the air, and I could feel the icy grip of fear wrapping around my heart. What had John gotten himself into? What could possibly be so dangerous that he'd take our daughter and disappear? The next few days were a whirlwind. I gathered the fragments of information I could find, locations, contacts, hidden messages. The search became an obsession. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. My entire existence centered on one singular thought: finding Emma, uncovering the truth. And yet, every lead I followed seemed to slip through my fingers, just out of reach. It was as if John had erased all traces of himself from the world. But then, one evening, I received an unexpected call, a different voice, one I recognized immediately. "Clara." John's voice was strained, distant. "We need to talk." The world seemed to stop. I stood frozen, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The years of marriage, the betrayal, the questions, the silence, it all culminated in that one word, spoken in that familiar voice. "Where's Emma?" I demanded, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing, the tension on the line palpable. "She's fine. She's with me." The words cut through me like a knife. I closed my eyes, trying to process what I was hearing. "What do you mean she's with you? What is this, John? What is going on?" "I'm not the man you think I am," he replied, his voice low and filled with a strange emptiness. "I didn't want to do this, Clara, but I didn't have a choice. I had to protect her. Protect us both." I shook my head, a wave of anger and confusion washing over me. "Protect her? From what? What the hell are you involved in, John?" For a long moment, he didn't answer. The silence between us felt thick, suffocating. I never wanted this, he finally said. But I couldn't tell you the truth. I couldn't bring you into this world. You wouldn't have understood. I was shaking now, my hands clenched into fists, but I couldn't bring myself to hang up. What world, John? What could possibly be so dangerous that you had to steal our daughter and run halfway across the world? You don't know what I've been doing, he replied, his voice filled with regret. I've been tangled in things far beyond anything you can imagine. People, Clara, dangerous people. They were after me, after us. I couldn't risk you or Emma getting caught in the crossfire. I thought if I could get far enough away, I could protect her. I could keep you safe. The realization hit me like a slap. The man I had married, the man I had trusted, had been living a life full of lies, of secrets too dark to fathom. He hadn't just disappeared with Emma, he had been running from something, from people who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. But none of it mattered. The betrayal, the lies, it was all too much. All that mattered now was Emma. Where is she, John? I don't care about anything else anymore. I just need to see her. I need to hold her. Please. I'm begging you. There was a long pause before he spoke again. I'll bring her to you. But you have to promise me one thing, Clara. His voice was unsteady, almost pleading. Promise me you'll keep her safe. There's more at stake here than you know. If you come after me, if you try to bring me back, you'll put her in danger. You don't understand what they'll do if they find us. Please, Clara. For her sake, stay away. His words were a gut punch, and I could hardly breathe. The man I had known, the man I thought I had understood, was a stranger now, one who had made choices beyond any justification, beyond any reason I could comprehend. But it didn't matter. All that mattered was Emma. And so, as I stood there, holding my phone, the weight of his words pressing down on me, I made the choice. I promised him I would keep her safe. I promised that, no matter what, I would find a way to protect her, because that was all I could do now. In the end, nothing else mattered but the love I had for my daughter. And so, the search was over. The pieces fell into place, and the truth, no matter how painful, had been laid bare. But it was not the end. It was just the beginning. The beginning of a new fight, a new life, where the silence of the past would give way to the loud, fierce love that would protect Emma from whatever danger lay ahead. I would do anything for her. And I would never let go.
I can feel the heaviness of the story settling deep within me, as if the weight of it is pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The betrayal, the uncertainty, the desperation, it all comes flooding through me, and I can't help but feel every ounce of that heartbreak. How could John do this? How could he take their daughter, disappear into the shadows, and leave Clara to fend for herself, grasping at the threads of a shattered life? It's almost impossible to comprehend the level of deception, of secrecy that had to have been building for years. She never saw it coming. She trusted him. She loved him. And yet, in the blink of an eye, he became a stranger. But there's something even more painful in it all, the silence. The quiet between the moments, the empty spaces where Emma should have been. Every room, every corner of that house, aching with the absence of a child's laughter, the absence of warmth. I feel that loneliness like a physical ache in my bones. The way the house grew colder, the way Clara was left to battle the darkness alone, consumed with that raw, gnawing fear of never seeing her daughter again. How can you even begin to understand that kind of pain? And then, when the call comes, that call, the one that offers a glimpse of hope, it's like a cruel game. The mystery deepens. Who is this stranger on the other end of the line? How could he possibly be involved in something so dangerous, something so deep that Clara never knew, never suspected? How could she possibly trust this person? And yet, with every second that passes, there's a growing sense of urgency. She can't stop. She has no choice but to keep moving forward. Even as her world is crumbling around her, she keeps fighting for Emma. But when she finally speaks to John, God, the pain of that moment. The mix of love, betrayal, fear, and a desperate plea for answers. Clara wants to believe him, wants to understand, but how could she ever forgive him for everything he's done? For everything he's put her and Emma through? And yet, there's still that part of her, the mother in her, that just needs to hold her child again. She makes the promise to protect her daughter, to keep her safe, even though the world she once knew is falling apart. The ultimate sacrifice, the willingness to let go of the past, of the man she loved, if it means Emma will be safe. That's the heartbreaking reality of motherhood, isn't it? I can't stop thinking about Clara's resolve in the face of everything she's lost. It's like she's become a different person, someone with a deeper strength she didn't even know she had. Her love for Emma is what keeps her going, even when the world feels so dark and uncertain. There's a part of me that feels shattered alongside her, and yet, there's also this deep respect, this admiration for the way she's willing to fight. To do whatever it takes. This story is haunting. The betrayal, the lies, the constant uncertainty, it shakes me to the core. But through it all, I'm left with one undeniable truth: love is the force that never lets go. It's the love that Clara has for her daughter that ultimately gives her the strength to push through. And though the road ahead is uncertain, I have to believe that the fierce love of a mother will always find a way, no matter the cost.